Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the third webinar from the Fischler Series for International Education Week. I'm Tony DeNapoli, the Executive Director of International Affairs, and Alejandra Parra, Associate Director of International Affairs, is with me. Today we're going to share our perspectives with you, and hopefully we'll make this a little interactive as we move along. It's a small group, so we know everybody here, which is great, and it's good to see you here again. And Dolores, I just thank you once again for putting all this together. So we're going to get started. I'm going to actually show you a quick video to kind of get you in the tone and set the tone for our discussion this afternoon.
Okay, hi everyone. Before we go on to the video, I want to find out if you see the slide with the title of the presentation, Today's Higher Education Challenge. Okay, wonderful. I get a lot of smiley faces. Well, I'm Alejandra Parra. I am delighted to be here today, and thank you so much for the opportunity, Dolores, for the work that the Fisher School has done to put all these webinars together. I would like to start by giving you a little bit of an overview of what's going to happen in our webinar this morning, or this afternoon, I'm sorry. As you know, we are an office that favors internationalization and everything that has to do with international issues, international affairs at the university, and that's what we're looking for here this year and always. For the university to become a more global institution. So today's agenda will reflect that, and we will start by discussing the effect of globalization on higher education. There will be a short video just to get you inspired to think about this phenomenon of globalization and how it affects higher education. And then we'll discuss the meaning of internationalization, talking a little bit about the benefits and the challenges of internationalization. And we'll next go to how higher education is responding to internationalization. And then we'll specifically refer to our wonderful university, NSU, and we'll talk about the concept of comprehensive internationalization. So hopefully this will be a rich agenda for you to bring home something that will be able to to stay with you and will be able to use in our daily routine. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and show you this very short video. I'm not going to give you any information on what the video is all about. I just want you to look at it with an open mind, and then we'll have some discussion about it. Okay? So, Dr. DeNapoli?
Okay, let us know if you can see the video and hear the sound once it starts.
Okay, I'm sure that maybe you had already seen this video before, but thinking in terms of this presentation, could you just briefly, any of you, answer and say, so what does it all mean? Can anybody write or maybe grab the microphone? I'm going to let it go.
Hi, for me, this is Dolores. It means that change is so imminent. It's right here before us, and it just sort of blows your mind as to what it's going to look like for the future. And what does that mean, and how does that impact the things that you do on a daily basis, whether that's career-wise, personal-wise, so forth. So it just really makes you stop and think about the things that you're going to be dealing with.
Yes, Dolores, I totally agree, and I think that everything that we saw on that very short video reflects what globalization is doing to our world. And the good thing is that we have technology on our side to bring us closer together. And Laura, yes, you're totally right. We have a lot of work to keep up with technological change in education. And that's exactly what we are going to be referring to. When we see this video, we think about globalization. And if you take a look at the next slide, the phenomenon of globalization, or as it has been defined, the economic, political, and societal forces pushing the 21st century higher education toward greater international involvement, has had an impact on higher education and its institutions. And this is what we would like to instill in this presentation today, how globalization has made an impact on higher education and how higher education has responded to this phenomenon of globalization by trying to internationalize the institution, the organization, the offerings, and everything that has to do with higher education to keep up with these, with everything that happened as a result of globalization. So basically, I think that the video really opens our eyes to think that globalization has had an impact, and what is the response that we have had to that impact. If you take a look at the next slide, there is let's say a generic belief that higher education is feeling the effects of globalization, and as a result, higher education has had to be very creative, reinvent itself to be able to keep up, as I said before. And what we're trying to do is to figure out, first of all, what are the influential factors that make an impact on higher education today, apart from globalization, so that we can actually go ahead and keep up with this globalized world.
Okay, well, Alejandra has set the tone to begin. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the factors and trends impacting higher education and what I always refer to as a borderless world. And obviously, we've been already talked about globalization, but the world economy has had an impact on higher education as well in terms of mobility of students and faculty, and also in terms of students being able to afford higher education, which we know is a pretty big issue currently facing students, especially in terms of the amount of debt that they have. And that's not only in this country, but internationally as well. As you know, many universities that were free, where higher education was free, particularly in Europe, are beginning to charge fees for students at all levels, which was really uncommon and unheard of before. So that's changed the way we all look at education and the way folks or students decide to choose a higher education provider, whether it be in this country or another country. Terrorism, of course, had a really big impact on higher ed and continues to pull back on some study abroad opportunities for students. It also pulls back a little bit on the fact that we have some parents who don't want their students to leave the comfy zone of their own little university. But nonetheless, we did see a slight impact in study abroad numbers this year, as reported just the other day by the Open Doors report, the Institute of International Education. Diversity, of course, is huge, and that's a topic we're going to touch on as we move through this. The growing number of virtual universities around the world, which are creating a whole different environment, which we are beginning to accept in places that have not been accepted before, the use of online technology, online courses, etc. The interactive technology, the growing trend in joint and dual degrees, or cooperative or dually delivered degrees. Of course, the increase for competition for students worldwide. The internationalization and customization of curricula. The international branch campuses and acquisition and purchase of foreign private universities, which is happening not only across the world, but here in the United States, where other units are picking up private universities and purchasing the entire university and moving forward with that. And, of course, the wider acceptance of distance education in the USA and abroad, which is something that is today much better than it was 5 years ago, although we still face some growing issues in certain countries, particularly in the Middle East and Africa, where the distance ed model is not totally accepted right now. And the European transfer credit system makes it a little bit easier for students to transfer credits among countries. So those are just a couple of factors that impact, and of course the real issue is how do we deal with those factors, and what do we need to do on this end to stay competitive, to implement some of these trends, and to move forward. So if we take a look at the next slide, we see that 73% of 526 universities that participated in the global survey see that internationalization is definitely a priority. And I don't think I think it's more than a priority. I think it's an imperative. You know, we've all talked about students becoming global citizens and creating a global mindset. And I don't think we have a choice as a university but to do those things and to offer our students the kind of opportunities that sets them out to be global citizens as they move into the work world. So one of the, there's many definitions of internationalization, and here's one from Knight, which is the process of integrating an international, intercultural, or global dimension into the purpose, functions, or delivery of post-secondary education. And throughout this particular presentation, we're going to talk about a number of ways that that's being done across the world, and of course here at NSU as well. Ale, you want to pick up the next piece?
Okay, so we're going to let Dolores pose her question.
I was just going to ask, in light of the slide that Tony just discussed with us, what do you see as the difference between nationalization and globalization?
All right, thank you very much, Dolores. That is a fantastic question. We see globalization as the concept that has no boundaries. There are no borders in globalization. Globalization brings the world together, but without looking at the specific national identities. Internationalization brings together a lot of different interests, but within a country that is looking outside. So what we consider the difference between globalization and internationalization, that globalization is the overall concept that yields as a result the desire to internationalize. So there are two levels. The concept of globalization is more abstract, bringing the world together, just breaking all the borders, no barriers, and internationalization is each one of the countries trying to look outside and break their own borders to become part of that globalized world. And I hope I answered the question. All right, wonderful. So if we look at, we're talking about internationalization, and we want to be that international organization, and all the organizations are in the same boat right now. But we have to look at some of the benefits that research has shown that internationalization brings to an organization, to a higher education organization. We look at how students and faculty increase their knowledge of the world, increase their knowledge in content that they may learn better from an international institution. Of course, there's increased academic quality when that happens, and institutions are always looking for a higher institutional profile and reputation, and internationalization really brings that to an institution because it gets the institution out there. In research, of course, in working with international organizations, we can actually grow in our ability to conduct research from different perspectives. Undoubtedly, faculty and students get a more diverse, get a hold of what diversity really means, working with people who may be very different, but may get to the same products using different routes. There is a global mindset. And of course, academically speaking, curricula get changed or get modified to fit other countries or other cultures, but at the same time they get enriched, and that's part of what we call the innovation of curriculum. Dr. DeNapoli wants to add something about diversification of income, and that basically means, universities decide to internationalize to get gains, financial gains from different ways of working, not only from the domestic students that they usually get. So, Dr. DeNapoli?
Yeah, thank you, Alejandra. While the income issue is kind of an interesting issue to talk about, and we all know that we have to, hit the bottom line, many universities have moved towards international students, for example, just because of the income potential, and that's not the real reason why we need to move towards internationalization. I was recently at a college board seminar, and this was a huge topic of discussion, that many people are doing it, one, just for the income, but a number of folks have finally moved off that dime and said, we need to do something different. We need to do this not only for the income, but we need to do it because we need to create that global mindset in our students. So if we're doing it just for the income, we're on the wrong path, absolutely on the wrong path.
Well, and in the same way that there are benefits in internationalization, we also have to look at challenges. Unfortunately, there are many people who still look at internationalization as a threat. For example, a threat to losing national identity and cultural values. Many people resist, especially in countries in Latin America, where they really wait longer to adopt international processes. The fear is brain drain. They feel that if students study abroad, or if the student is within an internationalized program, that student is going to leave the country and not come back. And I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, research really shows that in Latin America, that's one of the main fears when we talk about the process of internationalization. Other challenges are, of course, over commercialization of academic offerings. We feel, people fear that American institutions will go to other countries to sell their programs, and in the process, the programs lose their quality. There's also the concept of diploma mills and low-quality educational providers. Unfortunately, there have been many cases, and the reputation then is very difficult to change. But those are the challenges that we have to look at when we speak about internationalization. Curriculum adaptation is a challenge. Dr. DeNapoli mentioned before, the European transfer credit system. In order for Europe to get to that European transfer credit system, they actually had to go through a process of about 10 years to be able to understand how to transfer credits within the European Union. Through the Bologna process. It's still very difficult. There is a long way to go still in the United States, in Latin America, or between the United States and Europe. But I think we'll get there. It is part of the process.
Before I move on to the next slide, while Alejandra was talking about credit transfer, while it still remains a challenge for students who come here because they have to go through the process, of course, of getting all of their transcripts and their credits validated and through an external agency, but it does become very challenging for those students, and many times students will get different kinds of evaluations of the transcripts from one agency, from one to the next, and it presents a problem for us because we have to make a decision based on that. It also definitely turns students away from us. So we have to be much more open and innovative in terms of what we're willing to accept for curriculum and credits from foreign institutions. Let's move on to what we say is the path, or NHU's path, to what NAFSA is the International Association, what was previously called the National Association of Foreign Student Advisors. They've created this definition of comprehensive internationalization, and you can see it up there, and I've highlighted 3 words for you. So comprehensive internationalization is a commitment confirmed through action to infuse international and comparative perspectives throughout the teaching, research, and service missions of higher education. And again, those 3 words are critical: commitment, action, and infuse. And I think when we finish today's presentation, you'll see the commitment that's been put in place here, and you'll see some of the action steps that we're using